Welcome into Rover Sports here on 610 AM ESPN here in Philadelphia, and we welcome in a very special guest from Sports Talk FM in Mississippi and the host of the Head to Head podcast. It is Matt Wyatt. And Matt, how are you?
Doing great, Spencer. Great to join you. How are things?
Things are great, and Matt, I really came across your channel and your show from really the film reviews on your Facebook page and your YouTube channel. Where did you come up with the idea of the video blogs and, you know, documenting your life as a as a play-by-play guy or a color guy, and also with the film reviews? Where did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, that's oddly enough, it's a really good question. Is that I haven't had to answer it a whole lot. People are just kind of like, hey, I like your stuff, but if I really have to stop and think, okay, where did the idea come from? You know, it's probably one of those things where you go back over the last couple of years, and I've had worked in television some and then made the move over to the radio side. But, you know, you look at social media and everything is video-driven and going to continue to be video-driven. So I thought, well, we got to get back into video. But, you know, when you're going to, you know, spend your time and effort putting content out there, you try to think about, well, what value can I add? You know, there's already a lot of people that are smart that talk about things, that do reviews and do vlogs every day of their life, but what value can I give someone that maybe they're not getting somewhere else? And so I thought, well, here's the deal. I know football, I know X's and O's, and I know what's going on. There are a lot of people that do a great job with, you know, illustrating plays and highlighting what players are doing. But on television, they have those time constraints and, you know, 30 seconds here and 30 seconds there. So I can take 4 or 5 minutes and really dive in deep. And I just started with our team, you know, the Mississippi State Bulldogs here locally in the SEC where I played, and we have a lot of fans here. I started there, and it picked up, and then started doing the same for a few SEC teams, and so far it's taken off. And I really, really enjoy it because it serves two purposes, I think. Is one, it's a creative outlet for me, and it forces me to continue to learn and read and be on top of my game from an information standpoint. And two, I think it illustrates to a lot of fans just how much is going on in that huddle after the quarterback says hut, when he's reading things during a drop back, during a zone read, during a play fake. A lot of people see the game and they watch the football and that's kind of it. But that's not at all what's going on, man. It's a complex deal, and these 19, 20-year-old kids in college football, people would be blown away. The amount of information they're trying to process during a 2.5 or 3 second play. And I think that helps, what I'm doing helps a lot of our fans to realize that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm a guy that didn't play the game of football, but I like football just as much as some of the diehard fans. And when you turn on ESPN or you turn on FS1, they're gonna talk about, you know, the major markets. They're gonna talk about the Giants, the Cowboys. They're gonna talk about, you know, they're going to talk about the Rams, and they're just going to talk about storylines, like Big Ben saying he wants to retire, or quotes after a game, and you're not going to get you're not going to learn anything about the game of football or about offensive line protections. And I guess the question I have for you is, you know, from playing the game is, it seems kind of difficult to just learn the game of football if you haven't played it, right? Because of the accessibility to playbooks and everything. So do you think that that's difficult to kind of learn what you have learned, and you've played the game at Mississippi State?
Yeah, I think you know, some people probably are, depending on what they have access to, you know, even if they didn't get a chance to go through the process of playing, say, in college, you know, if you spend enough time going to coaches' clinics, if people who get into coaching, for instance, would be one example of, you know, I have a lot of friends here in the Southeast who are high school football coaches who didn't play big-time college ball, but they learned through coaching. Started out as a GA, and after 8-10 years of that, they've absorbed all the info. But to answer your question, yes. I think for the general fan, they just didn't, their lives are different. Their lives didn't take them that path that I had where, I was in a high school team, watching film, learning football and technique for 4 or 5 years. Then in college for 5 years, sitting in the meeting room, watching film with some really highly paid, very smart offensive people. My freshman year of college, way back in 1995, the offensive coordinator quarterbacks coach who recruited me and signed me was Bruce Arians. And so my first year of college, my introductory course to college football and absorbing and learning offense was in a meeting room with Bruce Arians. And, you can't replicate that somewhere else. So I feel fortunate, man. I feel like I've been blessed, and I'm happy now to have the technology sitting at my desk where maybe I can turn some of that back around, simplify it for fans who love the game, and maybe they can learn something from what I've learned.
You know what I enjoy? I enjoy doing interviews because I learn, I have a preset of questions, like I have about 8-9 questions. But then you just mentioned Bruce Arians. And so he was at Mississippi State, and is it really true that he can go in and out of accents? Like he can talk in a Southern accent for 1 second, and then like a very Northern accent in another interval of time?
You know what? I would probably answer yes to that question. Now, my entire time around him there in that year in Starkville, Mississippi, you would have thought he was from Starkville. Like, I didn't know any different. And then you start learning about him. I'm like, wait a minute, Coach, you were at Temple. He's like, yeah, so he spends that time there with you guys at Temple. And then I know he either at one point or another spent part of his career at Virginia Tech, and it bounced around. He coached at Alabama some, and of course he's in Cleveland and in Arizona. So I'll tell you this, one thing I do know for certain about Bruce, regardless of the accent, he could cuss you out in any accent. I promise you that. He could let it rip with the best of them.
Sure. And as a freshman, I'm sure that was eye-opening as well.
Oh yeah, it is. It's, high school is one thing. When you get up there with those guys like Arians and Jackie Sherrill and some of those others, it's you're kind of baptized by fire, so to speak.
Absolutely. We're talking here with Matt Wyatt, and Matt, before I go on to, asking you about players and quarterbacks, the last question I really have for you, we could go on about this topic for a lot of the interview, but with the film reviews, I've tried to even, dive into film reviews on my channel, and it's very time consuming. And even with college football, I don't even attempt it. It's really hard because, they don't have the all-22 with the college.
Yeah.
So talk about, like, the challenges of making a college film review, and then also how time-consuming it is. You mentioned the man cave. I like the Mississippi State helmet that's swirling around up there. So just talk about how time-consuming it is, maybe, to make a film review.
Yeah, it can certainly be time-consuming, and what I've had to do is dial it back a little bit, or at least be more organized. I'm one of those people that have a tendency to dive completely neck deep in something and let it consume me, and then you look up and you're maybe not spending the time with your family that you should, and so I have to kind of be very organized with it. So I plan, during the football season, I plan pretty much my entire month at a time out, ahead of time. I plan it out so that I've got it on a calendar, and I look up and it's Monday and it's Tuesday, and I've already planned ahead on, what I'm going to break down that day so that I don't waste any time trying to come up with an idea, number one. And then you got to go through the process of editing it. Now, I had the advantage of, I began my media career out of college in television for about the first 10 years or so of my career, and so I learned a lot of the video stuff and the software and the editing techniques, and so I can buzz through that pretty quick. But it can take a lot of time. It certainly can. And what I do, you're right, you don't necessarily have film copy that is the all-22, that is the end-zone copy, so to speak. But I kind of like that, because the people that I'm trying to put this video in front of are folks watching the game from the 40-yard line 30 rows up. They're watching the games from their living room. The way they see the game and the way they're going to see it is from that TV copy. So I can kind of look and imagine and see things that way and maybe teach in the way that they're going to consume the game as fans. And so I kind of have taken ownership of that and just decided I'm going to make that work.
Right on. Talking here with Matt Wyatt, and you can listen to him on Sports Talk FM. And Matt, I wanted to talk about my favorite quarterback prospect, and actually, he's not even going to be in the NFL draft this year, and that's a guy that you're familiar with in the SEC, in Drew Lock. In terms of this guy's ceiling, when I watch a Drew Lock throw, even watching him at West Virginia, his first game of last year, or of 2 seasons ago, this guy just seems like a different cat, and it just seems like, have you really seen upside like Drew Lock? And just what do you think of Drew Lock and his future this next year, and also being an NFL quarterback?
I think he's got everything you have to have. He certainly has all the physical stuff. And then he's taken it a step farther than just, say, having the physical stuff, and he's putting up the numbers, right? He's doing it in the SEC. He's done it for 3 years, freshman, sophomore, junior. Last year, as a sophomore, he leads the SEC in passing. This year, does it again as a junior. The only guy, I guess one of 2 guys that go over 3,000 yards passing for the year in the SEC. He's one of 3 to do it. And I think he really helped himself with a lot of eyeballs that were keeping an eye on him from NFL scouting perspective this year, when he helped that team turn it around. They got off to that 1-5 start this year at Missouri. Well, then they reeled off 6 wins in a row and wind up there in the bowl game against Texas. So, you finish out with 6 in a row. They didn't play any world beaters in that 6-game win streak, but they did play better football, and he pretty much kind of put them on his back. So those things, he's building a really nice resume. And, you're right. He's a little bit different. He's got the basketball background. He's loosey-goosey. He's confident. And I think some people like that. He doesn't take it too far. His teammates like him. So he's got all the stuff, man. And coming back as a senior, I know that a lot of the NFL people are really high on him already. And the biggest reason is because of that right arm. I said on our show, he's got Flacco arm, just in that, you don't realize, it makes it look so effortless, and you don't realize that he's putting a lot of RPMs on the football. He's throwing it as hard as anybody in college football. Yeah, I did a film study this week. You watch that throw on a vertical TD to start the second half against Texas, where he throws a frozen rope at 30 yards up the field and walks it out there and hands it to a guy 30 yards away. It was just beautiful. And so, yeah, there's a reason that you like him, and there's a reason the NFL scouts like him too.
Absolutely. And Matt, I have a question about Josh Rosen, the UCLA quarterback. There's a lot of discussion, and I'll even talk about it as well sometimes on my show, about Josh Rosen and the coachability factor. And that Josh Rosen, just from hearing about him, is very very confident. He's very opinionated, not only with football but also issues outside of football. Do you think that if you were a general manager, would you maybe have pause on Josh Rosen because of his coachability and because of maybe outside distractions?
It's a great question, and you're asking the same question that hundreds of other guys who are evaluators in the NFL that are asking also. They're all, I guarantee you, investigating everything in the past that they can to try to get an accurate gauge. Because it can be a confusing thing, right? Because, ultimately, overall, there's nothing wrong at all with being very opinionated about things away from football. And if politics is your deal, if that's what you're interested in, great. There's nothing wrong with being being opinionated. It's just, does that kind of take your focus away from football at any point in time? That's what they're going to look at in the NFL. They're going to go, okay, all these signs point to a kid that is he's multi-dimensional, but he's not ever going to lose his focus on football. Or some others are going to look at it a different way. So Rosen is that classic guy who's super talented. There's no question he's going to, throw touchdowns in the NFL. It's just some scouts are going to love him and some are not. And there's not going to be very many in between. It'll be really a cut and dried thing. But, somebody's going to give him that chance. But, who knows who it's going to be.
Matt, out of the top 4 prospects, Josh Allen, Baker, Sam Darnold, and Rosen, which one, if you were a GM, which player would you have the most concerns with? Who would give you the most pause about their NFL future?
Probably for me it would be Darnold, just because very, very seldom do you see players that have quirky mechanics at that position that pan out in the long term. Very seldom. Now, it has happened. It's just it doesn't happen much. The last time you go back and you find a guy who had that flying elbow, arm way out, ball way out extended from his side, and every now and then kind of throwing it sidearm, maybe like a Bernie Kosar, so we got to go back 30 years. Can he play? Yeah. Does he check all the boxes intangibly? Sure. And is he going to get a chance as a high draft pick? Yeah, somebody is. But when I look at, the other players, you look at mechanically, watch Rosen throw the football, and look how perfect he is. That's one thing, his mechanics are never going to break down. You worry about that if you're getting pressured in the NFL, if you're, looking at Donald at USC. And, the kid out of Wyoming, to me, is Carson Wentz 2.0, and love his upside. Now, I know he had some interceptions this year, but I think he'll be the one that'll come away and be number 1 on everybody's board.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Josh Allen too, just because he can scare defenses. And Matt, I wanted to ask you through this pre-draft process. There's some guys in the NFL, like I was very high on Deshaun Kaiser, and I look at Kaiser and his situation and his coaching ability, and if you were going to put me in a room and say you can have either Jared Goff, Case Keenum, or Deshaun Kaiser, I would still pick Deshaun Kaiser. How much does coaching and the system, how much does that matter whether these guys, really pan out at this level, at the NFL level?
Yeah, man, I think it's everything. I mean, it is just, for a rookie, that situation is everything. If you wanted to look at a contrast, look at last year, Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. And you talk about a perfect situation, a great situation around him, the pieces of the puzzle, the way they coached that team around him, and the way they could run the ball, right? It wasn't all going through his right arm. He was able to grease the offense, but he didn't have to be the offense. Opposite situation for Kaiser in Cleveland. You almost feel sorry for the guy at times when you watch some of the things that they do. They don't have the weapons, and don't have, the great team around him. So it's everything. Who's in that huddle with you, and who's making those decisions in the game plan. Kaiser shows you a lot of maturity. He stood in there and took a beating, came back and continued to play, continued to make the reads. And sure, they had some bad games. Talent-wise, yeah, I'm with you. He's as talented as some of those others. He certainly is. But those others certainly have some better situations than he did.
Now, Matt, I really appreciate you joining me on Rover Sports. I just have 2 more quick questions, and this question is pretty near and dear to your home state of Mississippi, and that's Shea Patterson. Shea Patterson leaves the Rebels, and now he's going to a place with maybe the highest expectations in all of football, a huge microscope on Jim Harbaugh, who has recruited some big-name quarterbacks, but he really hasn't developed them in ways that you would expect with Colin Kaepernick taking him to a Super Bowl. And with Jim Harbaugh, what do you think is holding Jim Harbaugh back from quarterback success? And do you think Shea Patterson can be like that Jarrett Stidham to that Michigan program?
Yeah, he can do it, yes. I think if they're smart, they have a legitimate competition. They have the McCaffrey kid that they signed coming in. And I never feel like it's a good thing for any team to just anoint a guy or give him an upper leg make them compete and win the job. Play the guy who gets you in the end zone the best. Make them prove that in your fall camp and off season. But can Shea Patterson do it? Yes, he definitely can. And I got to watch him up close and personally here the last couple of years in his time at Ole Miss. Got to meet him and kind of do that one-on-one interview thing a few times, and I'm impressed with Shea Patterson. He's mature. He's for his age, he is sharp. He's heady. He's a thinker. He's a look you in the eye, and he's intelligent. He knows the game. There are a lot of coaches who, Shea Patterson could get up there on the grease board and teach them football. He knows the game of football. So I think he'll be able to pick it up quickly. It's a matter of adapting to the people around him. Talent-wise, he's off the charts. Throwing ability, arm strength, all that kind of stuff. He's in that 99th percentile. And if he wins the job, if they open it up and he goes through it and legitimately wins the job, he makes them better on offense day one.
Matt, it was awesome talking with you. We really appreciate your time. Had a blast. Thank you.